Good afternoon, ladies, and thank you for joining us in Far Above Rubies today. I'm so glad that each of you are here. Today's focus for your reading challenge is going to be Acts chapter 22. And please remember, as I stated yesterday, yesterday's chapter, today's chapter, and tomorrow's chapter for sure all run together to tell one story. So make sure that you're catching up if you've missed something, okay? Otherwise, the story won't make sense with what's going on in Paul's life. So in this particular chapter, we find Paul having been taken into chains by commander of the guard because the Jewish people were basically up in arms with him and were trying to, as we see later on, they're trying to kill him because they don't agree with what he's teaching and what he's preaching. And what I find really interesting about this particular chapter is that while Paul doesn't go around telling everyone he's a Roman, he doesn't tell the Jews, well, I'm a Roman and you're not, and you're this and you're that. He uses this information in this particular situation with the Roman guard to let him know, hey, you're beating on and you're capturing and you're putting in chains a Roman citizen. And to this Roman guard, that meant something. To the Roman guard, this particular part of Paul's heritage said, whoa, hands off, he's one of us. Now, later on in scripture, in Corinthians somewhere, forgive me, I did not look up that scripture before I started. Paul tells us, I become all things to all men that I might win some. So I want to talk to you for just a second about this thought that the Lord will use your past. The Lord will use who you are in all of its fullness for your benefit and for your blessing and for His glory, okay? We oftentimes as Christian women can think, wow, that part of my past, I'm going to hide that. I'm going to lock it up in this trunk and never think about it ever again. We can think, I'm ashamed that maybe I'm not fourth generation Pentecost, or maybe we think I'm ashamed because I am fourth generation Pentecost and I don't know anything about living in the world. One way or another, many of us find insecurity about some portion of who we are, some portion of what makes up who we are as a Christian, as a person, as a woman. And yet, what Paul shows us in this moment is that what he was able to do is say, hey, this part of my heritage over here, that means you can't touch me and God is going to protect me. In another place, he tells the Jews, hey, I'm one of you. I'm a Jew. I'm just like you are. And he's using different parts of his heritage. He's using different parts of what makes him him. He's using different parts of his past to benefit the furthering of the gospel. And I love that because it just goes to show you that there is nothing in your past that is a mistake. There is nothing in your past, your heritage, or who you are, your makeup, that is a mistake. God has ordained every step of your journey, even every bad decision that you made. God has taken what the devil meant for evil and used it for good in your life, or he will use it for good in your life, for your good and for his glory. You will be able to become all things to all men that you might win some. Paul created a connection with this Roman guard because of his Roman heritage. He creates a connection with Jews in some cultures because he's a Jew. Whenever he's talking to Gentile Christian believers, he says, hey, I'm a follower of Christ just like you are. Is Paul being two-faced or a flim-flammy, shady person because he's this with that person and this with that person? No, because he stays true to being a Christian through all the things, all the hats that he puts on, but they're merely that. He puts on this hat, this part of his past, his heritage, his personality, his characteristics, when it's convenient to talk to that person about the Lord. When it creates that connection, when it builds that bridge, because of the fact that he was a Roman, that he was a Roman citizen, the Roman guard and the Roman commander both allowed him the privilege to turn and speak to the crowd, to speak to his accusers, when otherwise these guys would have been like, I don't care who and what you were. Get back in your cell there. He created a connection. He used part of his past to create a connection, to turn around and speak to those he needed to speak to about the Lord. Don't ever take for granted your past, my sweet friend. Don't ever be ashamed of what God has brought you out of or the heritage that God has given you, whether good or bad. Don't ever be ashamed of it, because God will allow you to become all things to all men that you might win some. He will use those things in your past for your good and for His glory. I love you all. Go read Acts chapter 22 and tune in for tomorrow, because this is going to be a continuation of the story, okay? I love you so much. If no one's told you lately, you are loved, you are cherished, you are valuable. Every bit of you is valuable. Every past mistake, every past slip up is valuable, because you have the ability to say, look what the Lord did for me, He can do it for you. Hey friend, I saw you slipped up. Guess what? I did that same thing too, and God was able to deliver me. You create that connection. You have worth, my friend, and that worth is far above rubies. I love you all. God bless you.